So today we are going to start with chapter 3 in the earliest cities. Saving an old building. Jaspal and Harpreet were playing cricket in the lane outside their home when they noticed the people who were admiring the dilapidated old building that the children called the haunted house. "Look at the architecture," said one of the men. "Have you seen the fine wood carving?" asked one of the women. "We must write to the minister so that she makes arrangements to repair and preserve this beautiful house." Why, they wondered, would anybody be interested in the old rundown house? Now let's read the story of Harappa. Very often, old buildings have a story to tell. Nearly 150 years ago, when railway lines were being laid down for the first time in Punjab, engineers stumbled upon the site of Harappa in present-day Pakistan. To them, it seemed like a mound that was a rich source of ready-made, high-quality bricks. So they carried off thousands of bricks from the walls of the old buildings of the city to build railway lines. Many buildings were completely destroyed. Then, about 80 years ago, archaeologists found the site and realized that this was one of the oldest cities in the subcontinent. As this was the first city to be discovered, all other sites from where similar buildings and other things were found were described as Harappan. These cities developed about 4700 years ago. Now the question, very often old buildings are pulled down to make way for new construction. Do you think it is important to preserve the old buildings? Yes, definitely it is very important to preserve the old buildings because we get to know about how our ancestors used to live, what were the materials used, right? So we get all the information about the architecture, about the materials used, and when and by whom this building was built. So it is very important to preserve them. Now let's proceed to the next page. What was special about these cities? Many of these cities were divided into two or more parts. Usually, the part to the west was smaller but higher. Archaeologists describe this as a citadel. Generally, the part to the east was larger but lower. This is called the lower town. So here we can learn that the part which was to the west and was higher was known as citadel, and the part which was to the east and was lower was called the lower town. Very often walls of baked brick were built around each part. So the bricks which were used earlier were baked bricks. The bricks were so well baked that they have lasted for thousands of years. The bricks were laid in an interlocking pattern and that made the walls strong. In some cities, special buildings were constructed on the citadel. Citadel was the higher part to the west. For example, in Mohenjo-daro, a very special tank which archaeologists call the Great Bath was built in this area. This was lined with bricks, coated with plaster and made watertight with a layer of natural tar. There were steps leading down to it from two sides, while there were rooms on all sides. Water was probably brought in from a well and drained out after use. Perhaps important people took a dip in this tank on special occasions. Other cities such as Kalibangan and Lothal had fire altars where sacrifices may have been performed, and some cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa and Lothal had elaborate storehouses. And you can see all these cities, you can locate all these cities on this map. On the right hand side, you can see Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, and all these rivers, Harappa. Fine. Now let's read the small box. These cities were found in Punjab and Sindh in Pakistan, and in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab in India. Archaeologists have found a set of unique objects in almost all these cities. What were the unique objects? Red pottery painted with designs in black, stone weights, seals, special beads, copper tools and parallel-sided long stone blades. Now the next page. This is a picture of the Great Bath. Houses, drains and streets. Generally, houses were either 1 or 2 stories high, with rooms built around a courtyard. Most houses had a separate bathing area and some had wells to supply water. Many of these cities had covered drains. Notice how carefully these were laid out. You can see in this picture on the left hand side. In straight lines, although you cannot see it, each drain had a gentle slope so that water could flow through it. Very often, drains in houses were connected to those on the streets, and smaller drains led into bigger ones. As the drains were covered, inspection holes were provided at intervals to clean them. All three houses, drains, and streets were probably planned and built at the same time. Now, children, this was the very special characteristic of Harappan place. The street, the drains, the houses, the streets, they were so well planned at that time. Now, these are not well planned in our times now, but they were so well planned at that time. So this was very special thing about Harappan cities. Life in the city. A Harappan city was a very busy place. There were people who planned the construction of special buildings in the city. These were probably the rulers. It is likely that the rulers sent people to distant land to get metal, precious stones, and other things that they wanted. They may have kept the most valuable objects such as ornaments of gold and silver or beautiful beads for themselves. And there were scribes. Now this is the definition of scribes. Scribes are the people who knew how to write, who helped prepare the seals, and perhaps wrote on other materials that have not survived. Now, next is the definition of craftsperson. Besides, there were men and women, craftspersons, making all kinds of things either in their own homes or in special workshops. People were traveling to distant land or returning with raw materials and perhaps stories. Many terracotta toys have been found and children must have played with these. So this is the picture of the terracotta toys. Right? On the right hand side are the terracotta toys, and on the left hand side is a picture of a Harappan seal. The signs on the top of the seal are a part of a script. This is the earliest form of writing known as in the subcontinent. Scholars have tried to read these signs, but we still do not know exactly what they mean. Now the next page. New crafts in the city. Now let us look at some of the objects that were made and found in Harappan cities. Most of the things that have been found by archaeologists are made of stone, shell and metal, including copper, bronze, gold and silver. Copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments and vessels. And gold and silver were used to make ornaments and vessels. Perhaps the most striking finds are those of beads, weights and blades. You can see the picture of beads here. The picture of stone weights is on the left, and then the blades. So let's read this box, the top, stone weights. Notice how carefully and precisely these weights are shaped. These were made of chert, a kind of stone. These are probably used to weigh precious stones or metals. Then here you can see the picture of beads on the right hand side in the middle of the page. Many of these were made out of carnelian, a beautiful red stone. So the picture is also in red in color. The stone was cut, shaped, polished, and finally a hole was bored through the center so that a string could be passed through it. And then far right are the stone blades. Now the Harappans also made seals out of stone. Now what are seals? See, seals are generally a rectangular shaped thing which usually have an animal carved on them. And these were very widely used in those times. The Harappans also made pots with beautiful black designs. Now cotton was probably grown at Mehergarh from about 7,000 years ago. Actual pieces of cloth were found attached to the lid of a silver vase and some copper objects at Mohenjo-daro. Archaeologists have also found spindle whorls made of terracotta and fines. These are used to spin thread. Now what is a fines? Unlike stone or shell that are found naturally, fines is a material that is artificially produced. A gum was used to shape sand or powdered quartz into an object. The objects were then glazed, resulting in a shiny glassy surface. The colors of the glaze were usually blue or sea green. Fines was used to make beads, bangles, earrings, and tiny vessels. Now, many of the things that were produced were probably the work of specialists. A specialist is a person who is trained to do only one kind of work. For example, cutting stone or polishing beads or carving seals. So, this is the definition of specialist, children. Now, come on page 26 and see how well the face is carved and how carefully the beard is shown. This must have been the work of an expert craftsperson. See here how nicely the braid is shown, right? So this picture also says that embroidered cloth. Can you see the design of flowers here? A stone statue of an important man found from Mohenjo-daro shows him wearing an embroidered garment. Okay. Now, not everybody could have been a specialist. We do not know whether only men were specialists or only women were specialists. Perhaps some men and women were specialists. Now, in search of raw materials. Now, this is the definition of raw materials. Raw materials are substances that are either found naturally, such as wood or ores of metals, or produced by farmers or herders. These are then processed to produce finished goods. For example, cotton, produced by farmers, is a raw material that may have been processed to make cloth. While some of the raw materials that the Harappans used were available locally, many items such as copper, tin, gold, silver, and precious stones have to be brought from distant places. Now let us find out from what all things were brought from which places. The Harappans probably got copper from present-day Rajasthan and even from Oman in West Asia. Tin, which was mixed with copper to produce bronze, may have been brought from present-day Afghanistan and Iran. Gold could have come all the way from present-day Karnataka, and precious stones from present-day Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. And see how nicely, you can see this is a picture of seal here. A large rectangular picture. This is a picture of seal. Food for people in the cities. While many people lived in the cities, others living in the countryside grew crops and reared animals. These farmers and herders supplied food to craftspersons, scribes, and rulers in the cities. We know from remains of plants that the Harappans grew wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed, and mustard. A new tool, the plough, was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. While real ploughs, which were probably made of wood, have not survived, toy models have been found. So this is a picture of a toy model, a toy plough. Today in many farming communities, only men use the plough. We do not know whether the Harappans followed such customs or not. This means that maybe the women also used the plough, right? Now, while real ploughs, which were probably made of wood, have not survived, toy models have been found. As this region does not receive heavy rainfall, some form of irrigation may have been used. This means that water was stored and supplied to the fields when the plants were growing. The Harappans reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Water and pastures were available around settlements. However, in the dry summer months, large herds of animals were probably taken to greater distances in search of grass and water. They also collected fruits like bears, caught fish, and hunted wild animals like the antelope. A closer look, Harappan towns in Gujarat. The city of Dholavira was located on Khadir Bait, also spelled as Bait, in the run of Kutch, where there was fresh water and fertile soil. Unlike some of the other Harappan cities, which were divided into two parts, Dholavira was divided into three parts, and each part was surrounded with massive stone walls with entrances through gateways. Now, there were also a large open area in the settlement where public ceremonies could be held. Other finds include large letters of Harappan script that were carved out of white stone and perhaps inlaid in wood. This is a unique find as generally Harappan writing have been found on small objects such as seals. The city of Lothal stood beside a tributary of the Sabarmati in Gujarat, close to the Gulf of Khambat. It was situated near areas where raw materials such as semi-precious stones were easily available. This was an important center for making objects out of stone, shell and metal. There was also a storehouse in the city. Many seals and sealings, the impression of seals on clay, were found in this storehouse. Now, kids, this is the picture of a dockyard at Lothal. This huge tank may have been used as a dockyard. What is a dockyard? Where boats and ships came in from the sea and through the river channels. Goods were probably loaded and unloaded here, just like a port. Clear? Now, a building that was found here and probably a workshop for making beads, pieces of stone, half-made beads, tools for bead making and finished beads all have been found here. Seals and sealings. Now, here you can find the exact meaning of seals. Seals may have been used to stamp bags or packets containing goods that were sent from one place to another. After a bag was closed or tied, a layer of wet clay was applied on the knot and the seal was pressed on it. The impression of the seal is known as a sealing. If the sealing was intact, one could be sure that the goods have arrived safely. Now the seals are even used today. Find out where they have been used. So, seals are still used in ceramics as well as clay tags for sealing the rope across the bundle of goods. Seals are also used for wrapping envelopes or containers nowadays as well. Okay? The mystery of the end. Now, how this Harappan cities came to an end? How did they end actually? Around 3900 years ago, we find the beginning of a major change. People stopped living in many of the cities. Writings, seals and weights were no longer used. Raw materials brought from long distances became rare. In Mohenjo-daro, we find that garbage piled up on the streets. The drainage system broke down and new, less impressive houses were built, even over the streets. Now, why all this happened? We are not sure. Some scholars suggest that the rivers dried up. Others suggest that there was deforestation. This could have happened because fuel was required for making bricks and for smelting copper ores. Besides, grazing by a large herds of cattle, sheep and goat may have destroyed the green cover. In some areas there were floods, but none of the reasons can explain the end of all the cities. Flooding or a river drying up would have had an effect in only some areas. Now, why all the cities end? It appears as if the rulers lost control. In any case, the effects of the change are quite clear. Sites in Sindh and West Punjab, which is in present-day Pakistan, were abandoned, while many people moved into newer, smaller settlements to the east and the south. New cities emerged about 1400 years later. Now let's revise some important dates. This is very important. Cotton cultivation at Mehergarh about 7,000 years ago. Beginning of cities about 4,700 years ago. Beginning of the end of these cities we just read about 3,900 years ago. The emergence of other cities about 2,500 years ago. So we came to the end of this chapter. Thank you.